Effie is honestly one of the most interesting characters within the series. And for this video, and for Effie Trinket alone, I am going to count the Mockingjay film as canon compared to the books. Because in Mockingjay the book, Effie does not go to District 13. But I find her development in the film version, when she's in District 13, so much more dynamic and so much more telling of her character. When we meet Effie during the 74th Hunger Games, she is presented as being about as capital as you can get. She seems frivolous and shallow and very materialistic. And she doesn't seem to have a good grasp on the actual horrors and dangers that are facing Katniss and Peeta in the games. She instead tells them all about the pleasures that they'll be enjoying before they go into the arena. They get to stay in the penthouse, they'll have tons of lovely food, they'll be eating better than they ever had in District 12. And though none of it matters to Katniss and Peeta, and they see her as materialistic for this, it does matter to Effie, because this is how she was raised. This is what she was taught to care about. Effie was raised in Snow's capital. In the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, we get glimpses of the values and the thinkings that Snow is going to be teaching and preaching to capital citizens in years to come. Snow makes a few changes to the games, and these changes work to humanize the tributes towards the capital citizens. Initially, tributes were just kept in the zoo, in a cage altogether, but we know that by the 74th Hunger Games, tributes spend a week living in the lap of luxury, essentially. They aren't starved like they used to be. They're given training in both combat, survival skills, and interviews. They're given mentors, which were previous winners of the Hunger Games from their district, to help them guide them through. They have the opportunity to gain sponsors and gain help in the arena. And though we know that this is essentially just putting a gold tint on a pile of dirt, someone like Effie might genuinely view this as a kindness from the capital. Because the capital citizens and the citizens in all the districts have all been taught that the Hunger Games have to occur if they want to keep the peace. And so if the Hunger Games have to occur, then honestly, it's quite benevolent of the capital to be treating the tributes so kindly before they go into the arena. They're almost treating them like they're capital citizens themselves. And this is not excusing this way of thinking or that it is classism, but it helps us understand why Effie might feel that way, because this is all she's ever been taught. And Effie has been assigned District 12, which hasn't seen a winner since Haymitch's games 24 years ago. So Effie never really gets the chance to even get close to these tributes. And I think a part of her, the really deep human part, wouldn't want to get close to them. I also think that because Effie doesn't have a personal connection to the tributes, she sees all of this as more of a job opportunity for her, which is a very cold and callous way of thinking, but again, this is how she knows how to behave. And then Katniss and Peeta come along and they win the Hunger Games, and this all changes for Effie. She has essentially been given the job opportunity of a lifetime. She was the capital escort to the first ever dual winners from the Hunger Games, and she gets to embark on a victory tour showcasing their victories as well as her own victory. But I do think this is where we start to see that Effie has actually started to form a personal connection to Katniss and Peeta. Throughout the victory tour, Effie helps Katniss and Peeta present themselves in the best light. She writes some speeches, she gives them advice, and she guides them through the capital. And I think where Haymitch really helps Katniss and Peeta get through the gritty, horrible politics of the capital, Effie helps them through the day-to-day. I do believe that a part of Effie is blissfully ignorant to the horrible facets that befall a victor after they win the Hunger Games. And this is another part of Effie having that childlike innocence, where she doesn't want to dig deeper because where she is comfortable. She'll never know the horrors that Katniss and Peeta went through during the games, but she can help them get through their day-to-day. She can write them speeches and she can guide them through a crowd, and she can introduce them to all the politicians and all the important players. And though she might not realize the full extent of the horrors that are going on, she becomes a valuable part of the team. And she sees herself as a part of this team of 4, more than any of the others do. And then the quarter quell occurs, and this is where I think Effie's character completely shifts. Because she has allowed herself to get close to these tributes like she has never done before. She knows them well, she cares about them, and she is suddenly sending off people she cares about to their probable deaths. And she doesn't really know how to cope with this. This is a woman who prides herself on always knowing what to say in the room, and always having the best insight and the best advice. And suddenly she doesn't have that anymore. Because how do you suddenly touch something real when all you've known your whole life is smoke and mirrors? Effie doesn't back out of this team dynamic. In fact, she binds them closer together. She makes sure that they each have something gold to remember each other by, and to remember the team that they are. Because I think Effie doesn't want to forget this. And it would be so much easier for her to distance herself, but she doesn't do that. And then the quarter quell occurs, and Effie is captured by District 13. And she hates it. Because though Effie is a character who cares about two people who went into the games, she is not a political revolutionary. She was likely ignorant of the rebellion movement existing at all, because Snow was very good at covering up any rebel movements. So suddenly she's gone from a very stable world in her point of view, where the Hunger Games has to exist for peace to occur, to a full-on war. And I think by this point, Effie knows logically that the Hunger Games are bad and that they are not needed anymore. But she also hates the alternative, which is District 13. It's devoid of any individuality and whimsy, which Effie so adored and so based herself on. And though the capital was very strict, District 13 is much stricter. But Effie at her core is a helper. She wants to help her tributes look the best. She wants to help them get through the day. And though her team has now separated, that doesn't mean she can't still help. And so Effie does the one thing she knows she's good at, and the one thing that she knows for certain is right. And so she helps Katniss get through each day. And she helps Katniss, in the end, become the Mockingjay. And at the end of the series, she moves back to the capital. Because this environment is familiar to her, and this environment is home. We don't know much about Effie's past, but it's likely she had a lot of family and friends who were severely hurt by the war. And as much as she cares for Katniss, Peanut, and Haymitch, by this point, she needs to rebuild her own life. And by this point, I think she's trying to help herself get through each day.